The maple leaf of a calendar event is actually how a diploma is made. So to get a art from a science, there's something called a faction. And factions are manufacturers of discourse. And discourses are limbic systems in order of operation. So to get from a number to a letter, there are 3 units and a verse, and that's a codon. So codons are the genetic rituals that a grammar take up. So grammars are extracurricular to the sanctioning of the ability to vote or declare illegal a membership. And memberships are the modification of human synapses that are counsel and declaration to each event within the system. So not only do these genomes manufacture themselves, they have party membership on the synaptic and the vehicular level. So under these codons, there is a dot and a dash, and the dots and the dash together make up a 1 or a 0. So if there's a 1 or a 0, the extra dash for the 1 would actually be a T. And this T, if used, is a semidecimal on what we call a 0. And a 0 in this system would be a vowel. It's actually a letter rather than a number. So if a T is a vowel, not only does the pictures have meaning to them, they have cross sections for the 3 levels of the dots, dashes, and the T's. So this is how Latin is a language of learning Greek. So if you have so much of the dots and the dashes, not only does the T cross section as a Greek vowel, the T sections as if it was a Rastafar of compromised statehood. And compromised statehood is a arc of language for mathematics, which is called a times table. So this is how leaves actually manufacture parts of their cells. So the degrees for cells are actually withheld to the very first step within the times table, because the times table has so many languages in it that it has to program for a final result. So if you program for equality, not only does the vernacular of the top of the timetable change, if you program for reciprocality, which is the equality of meaning rather than the equality of verbs, the zeros are actually in placement of who gets pictures rather than who gets numbers. So there are actually pictures versus numbers systems, which is hieroglyphics. And this is how degrees form. Degrees form by a hieroglyph being an agent of a centrifugal system of negatives rather than positives. Since these double negatives have values rather than ordinances, they actually figure that the placement of a vehicle is a enunciation of politics rather than language. So politics is policy multiplied by the value of reciprocality. So if you are reciprocal with your policy, not only does the ability to form equality censor both partial and complete levels, the equality is on both sides rather than just on one. So if the value of partiality is complete with completeness, not only does the equality of the speech transfer to the figurative, it transfers to the negative as well. And this is how negativity forms, is by receiving the equality as if it is a picture. So negativity is actually a flat dimension rather than a time dimension. It is flatness authorized. And under flat worlds, there are uses for reduction, and these reductions are acts of statehood and acts of entitling speech. So state and speech are figures of a automation and a process. Not only do these dimensions have x's and y's to them, they have the equality to match the statehood of the programming. And this is how calculators form, from programming speech into equality. And this is a central apparatus rather than a figurative apparatus. So this is where the times table breaches contract and forms into a miniature times table and a greater times table. And this is the four dimensions of the times table, where pictures and letters equal negatives and positives as